In this video, we're going to show you how to install the starter on your Subaru Legacy located above the driver's side portion of the transmission. With the hood open, locate the battery on the driver's side of the engine compartment. We're going to use a 10mm socket to loosen the cable on the ground terminal. Okay, give that a little wiggle, twist it up, and set it aside. Now our starter is located on the driver's side here behind the intake, but above the driver's side of the transmission down here. We're going to be pulling the starter up this way here. In order to do so, we need to go ahead and pinch this hose, clamp, and pull that off. Just kind of tuck that off to the side. Now our starter itself is held in place by 2 bolts and nuts here. And what we're not going to be able to really have a good shot of is what comes apart over here. Now there's a big rubber boot that goes over these connections. There is the battery wire that connects to this, so you're going to have to remove the nut and then pull the wire off. And then right here is a little spade connector. We just have to pull that off. So we're going to be getting to this is going to be accessible like this on the back side. So we have to reach down and pull that rubber connector off and remove those wires down there. Let's go ahead and get to it. We're now going to go ahead and remove this bolt right here. This is a 12mm bolt, and this is holding our ground strap. So I'm going to go ahead and get in there with my ratchet. It's a swivel head ratchet. Whatever you have to get in there. This works because it comes right up and around. Don't have too much interference with that ratchet. I'm going to reach down and unthread that bolt. There it is right there. And I'm going to grab that wire and just tuck that off to the side here. There's a rubber boot right here. You can see the positive wire coming through, and it goes underneath this boot. You're going to finagle your way back in there. You're going to pull this boot back and off. And peel it up and slide it back. That is going to expose the lug end or the cable end over here. So we need to remove this nut, and then we'll remove this cable from the starter. Now that we have the rubber boot pulled off of our wire here, you can see the nut on the back. Now there's 2 nuts. There's only one holding the 12-volt power source wire right here. Now that's a 12mm nut. I'm going to use my gear wrench swivel head to get onto that. And this helps, the swivel head helps because you get a whole bunch of hoses and wires and stuff all over the place. All right. We are not going to be reusing this nut. Still don't want to drop it, but in case you do, it's not critical. And then there's normally a washer right here as well, a lock washer. And that one's gone, but it's okay. We can grab that later. And then pull that cable end off. Now, right below it, there's a black connector right here. You can actually see, when I touch it, you can see it move around a little bit. Now that just pushes on. This is a spade connector. You're gonna have to grab that, pinch it, and pull it towards the firewall. Now right underneath is this black connector here. This is pressed onto a spade connector. Now in this side here that I'm rubbing on here with my finger is the little press tab. You're gonna push in on that. So the best way I could describe that is the side of the connector that's facing the transmission, not the brake booster side over here. You're gonna gently push in and push that off. And if I was to flip that up, let's see if I can show you here. It's this side right here. Now at this point, all of our electrical connections are undone from our starter. Pull the stuff out of the way because we're gonna have to finagle the starter up through the top. So I'm just kind of like pushing these wires down and out of the way so they don't interfere with us removing this later. Let's now get to the hardware holding the starter to the bell housing. Now we're gonna get to this 14mm nut right here. This is the upper bolt holding our starter to the bell housing, and there's the ground strap bracket right here that's gonna come off with it. Now I'm using a ratchet with my 14mm socket. I wanna go ahead and break this free. Okay, due to the limited amount of room, I'm going to try switching over to a swivel head ratchet. You could probably try a gear wrench in there as well if you wanted to. Whatever tool you can get in there to get the most swing on that, so you can get that off quickly. All right, here we go. It's somewhat loose enough. There we go. I can spin that off with my hand. We are going to be reusing this. As well as that ground strap bracket. All right, there's that long bolt right there. Now, for any reason, if you did drop the washer like I did, I'm gonna go ahead and use a magnet to go down and grab that there. It's sitting down here. And there it is there on the end of the magnet. We're gonna need to reuse that. Or at least it's preferred. Now the other piece of hardware we need to get to is down on the bottom side of the starter. Let's go ahead and get to that. Now with the vehicle raising supported, I'm gonna go ahead and use my deep 14mm socket on my ratchet, and I'm coming in on the driver's side right behind the wheel. I'll go ahead and get that socket on that lower nut there. There we go. All right, looks like that's loose. I'm gonna reach up there, see if I can spin that. And I can actually spin that nut. Now this is a stud down below, it's not a bolt. So I can remove a washer and a nut off of this, and you can see that there's a stud left there. Now from underneath here, I'm gonna go ahead and use my pry bar, and I'm gonna put it on the back end here of the starter, and I'm just gonna bonk it with a mallet. There it is. We just get that separated. Let's go up top and pull that starter out from up above. Now from up top, we're gonna go ahead and pull the starter back towards the firewall, pulling the back part out of the bell housing, and then we'll just kind of finagle it up out of the way. Now this is a fun part here, working it up around the hoses and the electrical connectors and all that fun stuff. Try to remember how you did it, because you got to put the new one in the same way. Here's a starter solenoid part here, it's up on the top. And if we finagle this a little bit more, we should be able to pop that out, just like so. Take our new starter, and we're gonna slide this down. Nice and easy. Now we're gonna lower this down, and then we need to turn it. And we need to get this is the snout, that needs to go inside the bell housing. We're also gonna line up the bottom ear, or the bottom hole, with that stud down below. ahead and slide that into position. That'll kind of like hold it there. I'm gonna go ahead and take this bolt. I'll feed that in. Feed that into the block. Now I know the starter's got to get fit up in there. We also have this little locking tab that has to get spun around too. Now technically, once you get that bolt lined up and you have that locking tab for that ground strap set in the correct location, you can go ahead and start to thread that in. Now if you have the ability to do so, go ahead and reach down with the other hand, pull that starter up into position. I'm going to thread that bolt in as far as I can by hand. You might be able to get it all the way, or you might be able to just get it a little bit, but either way, it's key to at least get those threads started. A little bit of patience, and you could probably get that almost all the way in. Here we go. Still has a little bit to go, but I think we can finish that up with our ratchet after. And that's probably what we'll do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back underneath. I'm going to go ahead and install that washer and the nut on the bottom, and I'm going to tighten that down and we'll torque it. And that'll pretty much suck that starter right in nice and flush. And then we'll come up here, tighten and torque that, and then we'll install our wires and all that good stuff up top. Let's go ahead and get that washer and nut started on that stud. And run that down as far as you can. There it is. I am going to make this snug. All right, now let's go ahead and torque that down to 37 foot-pounds. All right, now we have our swivel head ratchet on here, and we're gonna go ahead and run that bolt down the rest of the way. You might be able to get that on there a little bit further by hand. Here we go. Now this bracket right here, the stud hole, the thread hole should be facing straight up and down, ideally, because that's how we removed it with that ground strap on there. All right, so this is starting to snug. It's a short ratchet. We don't have a lot of leverage on it. Now, ideally what you want to do now is you want to torque this down to 37 foot-pounds if you have the availability to do so. Now, we don't have a lot of room to get in there. If you torque the bottom nut, you have an idea what that general 37 foot-pounds should feel like. I'm going to use my longer straight ratchet here, and I'm going to snug that down. All right, let's see what we can do here. Yeah, here we go. All right. Now here we are. We have the upper stud right here, and right underneath it you can see the spade connector down there. So just need to find that wire. Here it is right here. There it is. So we just need to get that lined up and push that on. There we have that little connector pushed on there. And I fish out our other 2 wires here. Here's that other connector. And that slips on like so, but I have to move this rubber connector over. Rotate that. Just like that. Now we're going to take the washer and the nut that was supplied with this. Now this is a little bit of a challenging task here. Still see that there. Have to feed that washer on. Gonna feed the working hand the other nut while you're holding that in place. And then get that nut on there. Doesn't matter how you really do it, you just got to get that lock washer on there with that nut. Okay. Let's now go ahead and snug that down. Now this nut that comes with the new starter is a 13 millimeter. It's not a 12 like the original one. So we're going to grab our 13 millimeter swivel head gear wrench. Gonna go ahead and get that on there. And we're going to make that nice and tight. So snug it down and put a little oomph behind it. The reason for that is that is a live wire. Once that battery is connected, that's a hot cable, so you want to make sure that that is on there tight. Now we can go ahead and finagle that rubber boot down. There we go. That's what we're looking for. Perfect. Let's go ahead and grab our ground cable here. I'm going to put my bolt through there. Feed that around and get that bolt started. And let's go ahead and tighten that down. Make sure that's good and tight. All right, now while we're here, let's go ahead and get that hose reconnected right there. Push it on and put on our little hose clamp right there. Now at this point here, we can now connect the battery, start up the vehicle, and go for a road test. Go ahead and slide that on. And go ahead and snug this down. And when tightening this down, you want to make sure that it's good and snug, but don't over tighten it as you can break the clamp. So you're going to bottom it out. Go ahead and give that a wiggle. We're nice and solid. You're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.